All right, let's bring in Matt Miller. He covers the draft. He gets paid to cover the draft. He covers every pick. And ESPN covering the draft for the 46th consecutive year. Matt will be joining Reese Davis, Mel Kiper, Field Yates, Lewis Riddick, beginning at noon Eastern for rounds 4 through 7. So, Matt Miller, friend of the show, and we make way for him. Come on in, Matt.
What's up? Bill. What's up? Which chair?
Closest to me, Matt. Looks like a Christmas sweater that you got on or something.
It's cold out here. You know, it's cold. I don't leave home, so being outside, it's a little cold.
This isn't cold.
This is cold for me.
Where do you live?
I live in southern Missouri. It's like 80 degrees.
Okay. But
this thank you. There we go.
This is football weather here.
It's football weather. I've never been to Green Bay before. So as a football nerd, I always said I wouldn't come here until I came for a game when it was cold out. I wanted the experience.
Yeah.
This is pretty close.
Yeah. Well, this is Christmas for you.
It is. Yeah, it's like tax season plus Christmas all together.
But how much pressure do you feel when you put out a mock draft? This is your job.
Yeah.
You're at the mothership and trying to live up to, Mel Kiper and everybody else that I don't know if you compete with, but, you compliment each other. So
I'd never thought of it like that. So now there's a lot more pressure now. I've never been like, oh, if I put this out and it's not good, Kuiper's going to be like, never mind, get that kid off my desk. But there is pressure. I think, obviously, I spent 10 years at Bleacher Report. That's even different than ESPN because it's ESPN. I mean, you guys have been there. It's like everything you say is under a different microscope. So there is a lot of pressure. With mock drafts, you basically get to a point where you're never going to like it, but you just get comfortable with it. So my last one came out yesterday afternoon, and I finally sent it to the editors and was like, I don't want to mess with this anymore. Let's just get it out there because I could make picks. I could change picks until tonight at 6:55 if I wanted to. So at some point, you just wash your hands of it and hand it in.
What's the pick that could change the first round?
Well, I think Ashton Jeanty going 5 to Jacksonville, but I'll back up a little bit. I still think there's a 5% chance Shedeur Sanders goes 3 to the Giants. I don't feel great about it, and I wouldn't put it in a mock draft because I think it's a minute possibility. But you have to account for the fact that an owner could hop in and say, hey, you know what? Take the quarterback here. So I think Shedeur at 3 would shake up the draft. Not that I'm expecting it, but Jeanty to Jacksonville at 5 would be a pretty big wild card.
Yeah, it feels like somebody's trading up, and my source said that. Somebody's trading up, and he goes, who are you trading up for? And he thought Jeanty's the only guy who's sort of a wild card with this he's an impactful guy, and we'd now, I guess, reassess the running back position. And
he's back.
When somebody says he's Emmitt Smith with speed, okay, you got my attention with that.
Yeah, and I do think in this class there's very few blue chip players to where you could say, okay, we have Travis Hunter, we have Abdul Carter. The next best player on my board is Ashton Jeanty. So thank you, Saquon Barkley. Now these running backs are being valued again. And so I think there is that element of, especially if you think about Jacksonville, you have a first-time general manager, first-time head coach. You really want your first pick to be a hit. I remember talking to Scott McCloughan about that when he took the Washington job. So the first pick needs to be a hit. They took Brandon Scherf, who was a guard from Iowa. He played in the NFL for 13 years. He was a really good player for them. So instead of swinging for the fences, sometimes you just need that first pick to be a starter that you can point to your owner and say, no, the guy we picked, look, he's out there every Sunday. He's making an impact for us. No one in this draft is going to make a bigger year-one impact than Ashton Jeanty.
How do I know when you don't like a player, when you put him in your mock draft?
That's a good question. I think when you don't like a player, you probably talk about it's more about the projection of how they could be good instead of here's how I know. Like when I talk about Abdul Carter, you get excited, you get energetic about what he brings to the field. When you talk about somebody, second round, or I would even say I'm not the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan. And there's a difference when I talk about him because he could work if this happens. If he gets in the right scheme, if he gets somewhere where they have a run game and he can live off play action. But he's not a big guy. He's not a traits guy. He doesn't have the huge arm. So I think you start to talk yourself into it more when you don't like a player.
Yeah, it's weird how we can look at one positive but also make it a negative when people go, man, he's tough in the pocket. He takes hits. Yeah. And then you'll go, well, maybe if he got rid of the ball sooner, then he wouldn't take all of those hits.
You would love him to be that tough and not be sacked 95 times. If he could be that tough and get sacked 20 times. And it's interesting because from an analytics standpoint, quarterbacks who are sacked a lot in college get sacked a lot in the NFL. And that's what we don't want. It is one of the stats along with fumbles that actually translates really well from Saturdays to Sundays. So you're right. It's like we love his toughness and that he's willing to stand in the pocket. But at the same time, at 6'1", 200 pounds, I would much rather him get rid of the ball on time.
More likely to be a Pro Bowler or a bust, Shedeur or Sanders?
Oh, gosh, that's tough. This is going to get clipped. I will say more likely to be a bust. But can you be a bust if you're picked at 21 or 33?
Well, okay, what's the line of demarcation of you're a bust if you're taken in this area?
Like, do we call, I guess Kenny Pickett we would call a bust because you were a quarterback in the first round and you're not the starter. So in that sense, you would be a bust, but not in the sense of, Jamarcus Russell or Trey Lance in terms of, a bust. So I think there's levels to it. If you're drafted in the top 10 and you don't become a long-term starter, that's obviously a bad pick. If he's drafted if someone trades up and takes him at 26 and he doesn't work out, it's not as, I don't know that I want to call that a bust.
Okay, but why don't we call scouts bust?
We should.
Or GMs bust.
Or draft guys.
Draft guys.
We should all take the heat. No, we absolutely should. I think
the players don't draft themselves.
That's it. I've made that point before, too. It's not the player's fault they were overdrafted.
Yeah.
If a player gets drafted, Trey Lance is a good example. It's not his fault he was drafted at number 3 after playing one game the year before.
But
and having to sit.
How do you miss on, you trade, okay, so this is Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you miss this badly? You trade, and you...
You find Brock Purdy and everyone forgets.
Yes.
That's how it works.
If they didn't get Brock Purdy.
They would be fired.
You think so?
Probably. I mean, it's tough because Kyle is Kyle, and he's NFL royalty to some degree, but probably because what would be your answer at quarterback? They might still be playing Trey Lance at this point.
If Brock Purdy was taken 15th instead of the last pick in the draft, would we have any issues with paying him $55 million?
I don't think so. I think it would be praised as, oh, look, they got it. They hit on this quarterback.
Like if he was Mac Jones.
Yeah, the narrative would be completely different, especially the fact that he's been to a Super Bowl, which that's something a lot of quarterbacks can't say in this era that's been dominated by Brady and Mahomes. So, yeah, I don't think anyone would be, and they probably would have paid him already had he been drafted at 15 because you always carry that first-round tag with you. If you're drafted in the first round, forever you are a first-round pick.
He's Matt Miller. He's ESPN NFL draft analyst. He'll be working rounds 4 through 7 with Mel Kiper, Reese Davis, Field Yates, and Louis Riddick. Give me the mock draft that you're the proudest of, like, where you had somebody and you could take a victory lap.
I don't know if I have one. I honestly, mock drafts, you get 8 picks right and you feel great about yourself. I think 2 years ago, I think I hit like 9 of the 9 picks in a row to start the draft, but that just means it was it was a predictable draft. It's very chalky.
Yeah.
One year I want to do it. I want to go with the betting odds and do the mock draft and see how right it would be. But I also know that those lines change based off mock drafts, so it might be an exercise in futility. But with mock drafts, I mean, it is truly if you get 10 or 11, that's a great year.
Have you had agents try to massage you a little bit there with?
I mean, no.
Be nice to my client.
I think because, I broke into this industry when I was really young. And so I think more so I have agents who feel like they can call me and tell me how wrong I am and how dumb I am instead of, I think with some of the guys who were in the league and then came to the media side, I'm sure Kiper doesn't get called by agents who say, you're an idiot, this guy's going to go first round and you have him in the second. Agents are funny, though, because they will do that until this week, and then they'll call and say, so where do you think my guy's going to go? They want to know the draft range this week. Last week, you were an idiot for having their player in the second or third round. This week, hey, what are you hearing about my player? So it's a give and take.
Why is Jalen Milroe invited to the draft?
That is a great question. I don't think it's because he's going to be picked tonight, as fascinating as he is as a player. I reminded people when that happened that Matt Corral and Malik Willis were also invited to the draft. They were third-round picks. So at some point, the NFL is an entertainment business. They want a good story. And if Jalen Milroe's comfortable hanging out in Green Bay for an extra day, he'll be the face of the draft tomorrow night.
Teams that historically are not good drafters, who would you put at the top?
I thought you were going to name them. So I was Browns, Jets. Those are the two that come to mind for me. And I tried to make a joke this morning on radio about the Jets being bad at the draft, and people thought I was predicting something. It's like, no, actually, traditionally, they're not good at it. And that's why I think you can point to Cleveland's been better as of late, but those are teams that are consistently picking in the top 5, top 10. They're there every year for a reason.
Seattle's great.
Baltimore's
great. Green Bay's great.
Green Bay, I think Buffalo is great. They're underrated.
But what's the strategy there?
I think they know their system well enough to know what type of player works there. And they've had some consistency in their coaching position. So you know exactly, with Matt LaFleur, you know what he's looking for, and you know where you can find that value. You can draft Zach Tom in the 5th round. You don't have to spend a first-round pick on an offensive tackle. Or we know they're not going to draft a receiver in the 1st round, although I really hope they do tonight. If you have the draft in your hometown, you should draft. It should be fun. You should take a receiver. But I think it does boil down to, like Baltimore, they've drafted the same player on defense for 20 years. They know exactly what works there, and they just keep plugging those players in. Highly productive players from big colleges. And look at the Rams turnaround. They're doing that too. They're going highly productive players from Power 4 conferences, and they've completely flipped that defense around after losing Aaron Donald.
Fritzy's a diehard Bronco fan. He found out this morning the Broncos have a first-round draft pick.
Oh, congrats.
It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I thought that they didn't have a first-round pick for a couple years after that bad Russell Wilson deal.
Yeah, no, you're back. You're back
We're
in there.
back
And
in
they might be
business.
trading up, is what everyone's saying today, is they might be moving up.
Can I ask
So-
you a quick question? If you'll humor me?
Yeah.
Can we see Ashton, can they trade up and go from Boise State Bronco to Denver Bronco, or is that expecting too
You'd
much?
have to, it'd be expensive. Do you want to spend 2 or 3 first-round picks on a running back would be the question.
Probably
So especially in a deep running back draft.
But it would be
you
fun
could
to
get
go
a guy
from
in
the Broncos
second
to the
round.
Broncos.
It would be fun. Yeah, they'd have to put some blue turf down in Denver for him. It'd be great.
Haven't they already done stupid things when they brought in Russell Wilson? Like,
That didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
I bought 2 Russell Wilson-related Bronco shirts that are sitting in the back of the closet. Cobwebs.
how does Cam Ward not work out?
I think if he continues to be reckless, I think the biggest drawback for him is at times he believes in his own talent so much that he'll wait to do things or he'll make throws that he shouldn't. I mean, when I look at Tennessee, they have to add playmakers around him. He is a very good point guard, but it's notable that his career got better when he went to Miami, where he had players. He had Elijah Arroyo, Xavier Restrepo, Sam Brown, Damian Martinez. All those guys are going to be drafted this weekend. He didn't do that at Washington State, despite the fact that he had Kyle Williams, who's going to be a top 100 draft pick at receiver. So I think for Cam, if Tennessee doesn't surround him with playmakers and they expect him to go be Jaden Daniels or Patrick Mahomes, it's not who he is. He's much more of a distributor than he is, this electric playmaker. That's not really the type of player that he needs to be.
But if you look at the scouts and draft analysts, they say, well, Cam Ward probably would have been the 7th quarterback taken last year.
Yeah.
Right?
5th to 7th, yeah.
Okay. But if that's the case, Travis Hunter is the most unique football player maybe we'll ever see.
Yeah.
Why don't you take that guy instead of taking the best quarterback in this draft?
I've been saying that as well. I would take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, but when they didn't jump in the quarterback market in free agency, we knew where they were going, because you can't roll another year of Will Levis out there. That's not working. And so we see this every year, though. Teams talk themselves into their quarterbacks. I mean, Fritzy's Broncos, it worked, but they talked themselves into Bo Nix, and they were really backed into that corner of there's no other quarterback on the board. We're going to have to take him. It worked out. Mac Jones is an example of when that doesn't work out. So Cam Ward is a good player. He's my number 14 overall player in this draft. So him going 1 is not relative. No one has him ranked as the top player in the draft. At least of the boards that I've seen from my colleagues, none of us have him as the top player. I know that anyone has him in the top 5 even.
Give me your scolding hot take for tonight.
For tonight, I should have been prepared for that. My scolding hot take, the defensive linemen are going to fly off the board tonight.
That's not
hot enough?
No.
Okay.
No.
Hotter.
Yeah.
Shador doesn't go tonight. Is that hot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. I think we see one quarterback tonight, unless there's a trade.
Jackson Dart doesn't go.
No, as much as I would love it. Unless the Giants come back up. I could see that. I could see the Giants getting back in for him, but it's very hard to find a team that loves Shador Sanders. That loves enough to make him the guy. And maybe it's Pittsburgh, but there's got to be some Kenny Pickett PTSD there. From like, we tried this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it didn't work. So that would be my hot take.
Do small hands matter with your quarterback assessments?
I mean, a little bit. If you have fumbles, then I think you look at that and say, is there causation there? If you have a guy with smaller hands. But Patrick Mahomes has 9-inch hands. It hasn't held him back at all. So I think you want to look at it. If it's a player who has fumble issues, then you look at the hand size and say, okay, maybe it matters.
Marvin, hold up your hands. If you had a quarterback who had those
there
hands.
We go. Also, not a big hand guy, A sub 6 footer's got to stick together. So it's also, I don't know that. What was John Elway's hand size? I don't know. It's probably probably decent size. He's a big guy, but like Joe Montana.
That's what I brought
does it
that up.
matter?
I think it's so silly that I don't remember somebody saying, Unitas, I don't know if he'll succeed. His hands are smaller. Joe Namath or any of these
I understand the irony of a person in my field saying this, but Dan, a lot of the things we talk about from January to now really don't matter. They just really, they don't matter. And I get that, but
Thank
yeah.
you. Hey,
Yeah.
you got to fill. You're in the machine at the mothership.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Arm length. We got to talk about something.
Yes. Have fun this weekend, Matt. Great to see you. Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst. We'll come back with our scalding hot takes for tonight right after this.